Hey, this is Christina Feliciano with Feliciano and Friends. I have my dear friend, Dr. Kevin Holthaus here. Thank you for coming. And we are going to discuss his personal and professional opinions on longevity and talk about some different things that people are doing to try to stay youthful and also some different supplements and get his opinion on why it does or doesn't work. So, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Christine, thanks for having me over.
Of course. So, just a little bit of background. Tell us or the listeners a little bit about yourself, your age, and I know you're a physician in Air Force. Just explain it all.
Well, I don't know if I want to tell anybody my age.
No, you do. 'Cause we're talking about longevity, and we need to know how old you are,
Well, if
or
somebody,
give a range.
if somebody up at the Secretary of the Air Force office hears this,
Oh, okay.
I'm already in enough trouble with them because of my age.
All right.
Okay.
So,
But I got my medical degree at Michigan State University. Then I did my internal medicine residency down here in Jacksonville at what we used to call the Knife and Gun Club, University of Florida. Great place to train. But yeah, it was kind of like that. But I think I got a great education there. So I've been out in private practice. This will probably say a little bit about my age. I've been in private practice in Jacksonville Beach since 1986. Now,
okay.
I know most of the people who are listening to this probably were not born then. Actually, I had my pilot's license in 1983.
That's the year I was born.
Okay, well,
So,
you look much younger than my pilot's license.
oh, okay. Well, that's good.
But I have a private practice right now. I'm doing something with a semi-concierge program called MDVIP, and people have a wellness program that they subscribe to annually for this. And so while I did 20 years of hospital, my focus has been much more on preventive medicine and wellness for the last probably 10, 15 years.
Okay, that's awesome. So, what do you recommend to stay youthful and live a long life?
Well, I've
Healthy life, not
yeah, well,
nursing.
I would probably say more than the caveman diet, perhaps the caveman lifestyle.
Okay.
One, I may have a warped sense of humor, but I do remind some of my patients that the human species has been around for about 800,000 years.
Okay.
The first Sumerian civilization occurred about 5,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Up until and probably until about 3,000 years, since then, any time that a human being took a day off, something ate them.
Say word.
Well, it's a true
So,
statement, and
yeah,
the gist of that is that we were meant to stay moving.
I agree with that.
So the more that you keep moving, if you are only exercising 3 days a week, that's not going to be enough. Your body is going to deteriorate.
I agree with that. I tell people 5 to 7 days a week, and people look at me like I'm crazy.
Well, if you give them 5 days a week, you're giving them 2 days a week off. And like I said, the Burmese pythons are moving north. So if you hear that slithering sound under your easy chair,
Yeah.
you better haul tail out of
So
it.
you'd recommend 7 days a week?
Yes.
That's what. Okay, that's what I agree. I say 7 days. I say 5 days a week to try to. I tell people to try to treat it like a job, Monday through Friday. But I agree with the seven. And when you're maybe for people that are listening, you're just talking about physical activity. So a walk on the beach or something too. It doesn't have to
Yes,
necessarily be in a gym, right?
that's correct. Um, in fact, I do a fair amount of aviation medicine, about 1,500 or more FAA medical examinations for pilots, and the bulk of those are probably the airline pilots, the folks who get to look out the front windows on the airplane
Yeah.
while you're traveling to interesting places. Um, about 70% of my pilots now are carrying the resistance bands. No matter how nice the places they're going to, if they're not getting where they're going until 10 o'clock at night,
Mm-hmm.
going down to the gym is something that may not happen. With the resistance bands, any doorway, including the door to their hotel room, becomes their gym. And I've been lately for say people in their mid 30s up, circuit training with a lower resistance but higher repetition system
Mm-hmm.
seems to be more helpful. And you can do that very easily with the resistance bands. And again, these things weigh about a pound and a half. They travel well.
And for the resistance bands, how long should they use it? Like how many is it?
What I'm having folks do is, for example, I'll start off with people doing the internal rotation like this.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll do it with maybe only 10 or 20 pounds,
Okay.
but you'll do probably 40 repetitions. It will take you maybe 45 seconds to do that. Okay, for the next 15 seconds, you have a rest. And then you do the same thing with your opposite arm, the left arm. Then do that, then 15 seconds rest, and then you can do the external rotators like this, and the same thing. So you're doing one of these sets about every minute, and about 30 to 45 seconds of each one of those minutes, you're actually moving. Now again, I start with the internal and external rotators because, surprise, those are two of the most important exercises to get your shoulders warmed up, so you're not going to mess your shoulders up.
And for people that are maybe listening, where can you get a resistance band? I'm assuming like Amazon. You can
Yes,
get
you
it.
can.
And then you can do this when you're, I mean, I encourage
Yes.
people to get out of the house,
Yes.
but you can do this at the house,
You-
right?
you
You can
can-
watch television and still be
For
working out.
for a small contribution to my favorite online charity, the Send Jeff Bezos Back Up into Outer Space Fund.
Right? Also known as Amazon.
Correct. For about $25-$30, you can get the whole set.
Okay.
And there's usually a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50-pound bands. Get the bands that have the clips on them so that you can use a 10, 20, 30, or 40 by themselves, or you can actually add all those up. So that's anywhere from 10 pounds to 150 pounds of relative resistance.
Okay, so for people that are, listening, so for only $25, you can go on Amazon, you can get these resistance band, and you can get the weight of up to how much with the resistance?
Well, because it's 10 plus 20 plus 30
Uh-huh.
plus 40 plus 50, 150 pounds relative resistance.
Wow. Okay. And you can just use it anywhere,
Yes.
right?
Yes. In fact, for younger folks, maybe, or people who are more concerned with building muscle mass, on the days that you're not doing the high resistance exercises, you can do the low resistance and get your cardio at the same time.
Okay.
That's the joy of this. One of my patients today said, "Hey, I'm doing this. It takes me about 50 minutes to an hour every day to do that." I said, "That's perfect because you're also getting your aerobic exercise at the same time. That little 45 seconds of exercise, 15 seconds of rest out of every minute. And if you're doing that for 40 minutes, your heart rate will get up."
Okay. Yeah, so that's awesome. That's good to know for everyone. And then that's someplace like there's no excuse, right? If you have a resistance band.
There's always an excuse.
Well,
there may
there
not be
shouldn't be, though.
there may not be a reason,
yeah.
but there can
there's
always be an excuse.
All right.
And that's why I remind them about that slithering sound.
Yes. No.
So,
And then what is your opinion? I do 72-hour water fasting about every 3 months. And I've been doing that for the last good 5-6 years. What is your opinion on fasting?
well, if it's working for you, I should say, I'm not sure everybody will get the results that you have, but yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Well, what I tell people is that, this is always, in all these ancient, I'm a Christian, but in the Bible, but in all these different ancient spiritual texts, they talk about fasting. And I think there's a lot of both spiritual benefits to fasting, but as well as health benefits. And I always just hypothesize or speculate that because there's not a lot of money in selling fasting, we don't hear about it. Is that correct, you think?
Probably about 20 years ago, there was research done on mice that they had one set of mice that were getting the standard diet of whatever they could eat, and they were set on that. And then there was another set of mice that were only getting 2/3 of that caloric intake. The mice that were only getting 2/3 of the caloric intake compared to the controls actually lived about 30% longer. So this was probably the genesis in part of fasting, other than biblical references.
Yes.
And we are probably overeating as it is. And so if you don't necessarily have the discipline or the bookkeeping skills to make sure, okay, here's my 1,600 calories that I've taken in today, then the intermittent fast.
The intermittent. But aren't there studies that show that like bad cells or die quicker if you're fasting, or am I incorrect?
No, there is some research. There's a whole lot of research going on right now. One study will say one thing, another study will say the next. Part of this is what you're comfortable with. And again, some of this will be, okay, how many total calories are you taking in?
Yes.
With respect to weight loss and so on, each pound of fat is about 4,000 calories. So you actually have to have a deficit of 4,000 calories before you lose a pound of fat. For example, say your base metabolic rate is, say, 2,000 calories. That means that on the day that all you do is run around your bathrobe with a cup of black coffee, and you're going to burn say 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
If you're overweight but you want to lose weight and you're only taking in 1,500 calories, then that would be a 500 calorie a day deficit if you're not exercising.
It would take 8 days, right, to lose
Yes.
1 pound of fat.
Yes. If you that with 2,000 calories base metabolic rate, that person's going to actually burn about 400 calories per 30 minutes of moderate to brisk exercise activity, such as walking 3.5 miles per hour. Again, probably the vigorous circuit training with the resistance bands, for example, would count. Any of those. So if you exercised another 30 minutes and you were a 2,000 calorie day base metabolic rate with 1,500 calories a day intake, then you're actually going to lose a pound of fat probably every 3 to 5 days.
Okay. And then I always tell people to try to build muscle to increase their BMR.
Absolutely.
And the base metabolic rate is also known as BMR. So I always educate my patients and say, look, another way, cardio is great. Of course it's positive, but if you can build more lean muscle, the higher muscle that you'll have, the higher BMR that you'll have. And I always give an example of like people that are super big bodybuilders, they're going to be able to burn, they can almost eat whatever they want, not that they are, because they have so much muscle.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and then what is your opinion with cold water plunges?
Well, the last time I did it, for years, in fact, I went to college up in northern Wisconsin. I was somehow found myself on the wrestling team for a couple semesters. It's another story. One of my wrestling buddies' parents had a ski resort up there, and we had a sauna, and then we would run out and jump into the snowbanks.
Okay, my mother is Swedish, and that's a very Scandinavian thing to do as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so there's generations, probably multiple generations, who've done this, and the Swedes are doing pretty much all right. So why not?
Okay, so do you think benefits, of course, of the sauna then as well?
Yes. Before you do that, consult your own physician to make sure that your heart and so on, because that can be quite a bit of a shock when you go in, depending on how cold the plunge was.
Yes, and then also I guess too hot is not good either for the sauna. Okay,
Correct.
And then what about different things that are being used for longevity, like peptides? Can you explain to us what is a peptide?
Certainly. A peptide is any compound that's made up of amino acids. Now, amino acids are the precursors to proteins.
Okay.
So a peptide could be anywhere from 2 to 20, 30, 40, 50 amino acids, these building blocks, these organic building blocks that make up proteins, that make up this peptide. So it's smaller than what you would call a protein, but it actually is a chain which is oftentimes biologically active. Okay. Two of the most popular peptides right now are semaglutide and tirzepatide. Those are actually peptides, and they're given by injection.
Yeah, the GLP-1 peptides that are being used for weight loss.
Precisely. And so more of these peptides are used for other purposes. For example, I think the Sermorelin, which I think is available through your practice.
Yes, we offer that through our practice.
Okay. That is
which is Alpha Clinic, but go on.
Okay, shameless plug.
Right,
okay.
Of course, always.
It's all good. The Sermorelin actually is a peptide analog for human growth hormone releasing hormone, which a hormone is a much longer peptide.
Okay. And then for people that are listening, the HGH, some people know that, which is human growth hormone, as anabolic steroids, but this is separate. This is not an anabolic steroid. This is a peptide that stimulates your own body to produce it, correct? Correct.
In fact, the anabolic, it's not a steroid. Anabolic steroids would be the testosterone derivatives.
Okay.
This actually works differently, and this is important for women to know as well. The Sermorelin stimulates part of the brain to release human growth hormone. Now, there's more than one variety of human growth hormone, so your body has the opportunity with the Sermorelin to look around and say, okay, well, what kind of growth hormone do I think I need? and then be a bit more selective with producing these other subtypes of human growth hormone. So that's a big advantage over just getting an injection of human growth hormone, which is just one variety of
Okay.
this
And
subtype of
would you
hormones.
recommend Simorelin for men and women?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
And then for the Simorelin, what are the benefits?
Okay. The benefits are because of the growth hormone. You promote lean body mass as long as you're exercising. Grow more collagen.
Okay.
Regulate your body. It may also make you feel younger and more energetic. Therefore, this is being looked at as a different way of dealing with menopause or perimenopause symptoms.
Okay, so for men and women,
Yes.
this is really positive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And from a men's standpoint, from a women's standpoint, it's beneficial and does many of the same things that testosterone would do, but without having to deal with the DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, issues with getting a testosterone prescription
Okay.
and the other potential adverse effects, growing a mustache, etc., that you
Right.
might get with testosterone. With too
That's
much
what I always tell,
testosterone.
because we have a testosterone clinic, but I'm a proponent for men to have testosterone,
Mm-hmm.
not women.
Yes. We do have women will actually make small amounts of testosterone in their adrenal glands, so it's not unnatural for women to have.
Yeah,
some.
no, we have low T.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I had mine tested. Mine was very low.
well, your estrogen level was probably good, though.
Yeah, everything was good. Yeah, but I was like, I was surprised because I feel like I'm a little feisty, but I really like it's not masculine because my testosterone was like 3 or something.
You can almost think of estrogen as being women's testosterone,
Yes.
but a little bit of testosterone is probably useful. Men make a little bit of estrogen.
Yes.
I tease some of my patients about if their estrogen level is too high, then they probably cried at the end of Top Gun Maverick, which would not be a manly thing to do.
No, I think men cry. That's sad when Goose dies.
It's a hey, we can get
Yeah.
we can get in touch with our feminine side.
Yes, without
It's-
crying.
It's okay, just depending on where you do it.
Yes, I get that.
At home, probably a good thing. In the locker room, maybe not.
I can understand that. All right, and as you know, obviously I'm a proponent of testosterone. Another shameless plug. It is our business. But what is your opinion with men and testosterone? Why is it so good?
It makes a man feel like he's about 18 years old again.
They like that.
But hopefully with a brain this time.
Okay, good. So they have better decision-making power choices?
Hopefully, yes. There is testosterone storm, but hopefully they've gotten through that.
Yeah, so what I always tell men, and you could add or correct, is that, it helps with libido, of course, but also it helps with the sleep cycle. It helps them because they can actually get more gains in the gym because they can get physically stronger because if they lift more because they're physically stronger, so they get more muscles, and then just like mood and affect, it helps as well.
Generally, yes. I know how careful you are when you are prescribing.
Yeah, we take
and
monthly
managing
labs.
this.
Yeah, monthly we do.
Yes,
So,
and what you're doing,
and we keep an eye on the
is
PSA
a smart way.
symptoms.
It's a
Yeah.
smart way. It's a smart way of doing things,
Exactly.
and I think they probably like it.
Yes, they do. They love it.
Yes.
So.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. So, and then is there any other, I know we're going to wrap up. I really appreciate you coming. It really touches my heart that you wanted to help me. So thank
My
you.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
If I can be of usefulness again, let me know. I'll be happy.
And then,
I always like talking.
and then to wrap up, is there anything, I know there's probably a million, but anything as far as longevity, like any little tip that would be easy for people to do that I didn't touch on? I know there's probably several, but.
It sounds silly, but make sure you're taking your vitamin D.
Okay, no, it doesn't sound as good.
Usually recommend about 5,000 international
And
units
are you okay
daily.
with oral vitamin D?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, yes. That's 75% of vitamin D comes from sheep lanolin from New Zealand. So you don't have to get all the other K2 or other stuff with it. If it's
Okay.
what you have, fine. But just plain old vitamin D, the levels can be checked. And actually, about the age of 50, we tend to lose the ability to make vitamin D in our skin.
Okay.
So you really need it then. And actually, if you're taking vitamin D, it actually protects you against conditions such as melanoma.
Okay, that's really good to know.
So yeah, so that it is your liquid sunshine.
Okay, well, perfect. Well, thank you.
Sort
so
of like you almost, but you're not liquid.
Okay, well, I'm sunshine though.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All
Thank you,
right, I
dear.
appreciate you coming. Thank you so much.
My
All
pleasure.
right.